If you like a good movie and love a tasty treat, you could win one of 3 HD flat screen TVs. This is your chance to snack, watch, and win. Buy a 3-pack of Act 2 popcorn or a 10-ounce Crunch and Munch, plus a Hershey's milk chocolate or cookies and cream bar. Write your name and number on the back of the receipt. Drop it off at Pritchard's, Robinson Road, or Caleb Bahamas, Marathon Mall. Then order a movie from Rev TV On Demand, Channel 500, for your chance to snack, watch, and win. Enter today. Promotion ends August 30th.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12. Coming up tonight in news, the Prime Minister addresses heavy criticism over BEC. A threat issued against the Bahamas consulate in Miami. BGCSE results are in. Find out why the Education Minister is calling math results unacceptable. Plus, big plans underway for Bimini's development. I'm Bonnie Chute, and NB12 starts now. Tonight, Prime Minister Christie giving more details today on the planned liberalization of the Bahamas Electricity Corporation-dominated energy sector. Today, he also responded to concerns expressed by BEC's unions and the accusations and doubts voiced by the Free National Movement. The Prime Minister says those critics are shooting in the dark. Nakia DeVoe reports.
The government is currently reviewing 65 proposals from outside companies formed here in the Bahamas, and joint ventures which are all looking to reform BEC. The Prime Minister says the move will save the corporation and the country hundreds of millions of dollars. And he says he's not moved by the criticism.
I do not expect people to agree with a process that we have adopted. This is another big decision for the country, and I'm proud to be the Prime Minister at this stage who's leading it.
Christie's comments came in response to F&M Chairman Darren Cash, who recently said his party is questioning whether the government's push to privatize the corporation is being driven by special interests. He also criticized the Prime Minister for offering shares in the cash-strapped corporation. Well, Christie said that Cash is clearly misinformed, stating that the process is not as definitive as the F&M chairman is suggesting. The Prime Minister says the government will have several options for BEC once the task force has reviewed all proposals.
From the management of BEC exclusively, similar to what nowadays exists, where no shares are, you simply come in and manage BEC, or private company becomes responsible for the generation of electricity and BEC the management and distribution of it. And finally, whether or not the private sector would propose that they do the whole thing.
The announcement that the government was seeking a partner to turn around the energy sector was made Tuesday evening in a statement. It said the government's objective is to realign BEC and to create efficiencies which will allow for significant reductions in the cost of energy, increased energy security, environmental responsibility, reliability, and increased competitiveness as a country. Christie said that two of the groups are reportedly offering a $1 billion expansion, and several groups are proposing to save BEC hundreds of millions of dollars and reduce electricity costs anywhere from 20 to 50%. The government has hired KPMG to ensure that it meets all the timelines and makes the right decisions for the country. And speaking of timelines, unions here at BEC say they were blindsided by the decision and were just notified hours before the announcement was made. Now, they, along with Cash, say they're concerned about the quick deadline of September 13th. But Christie says none of this should come as a surprise to them.
We've had a lot of people on a task force that from the BEC management, so the unions ought to have known that we've been laboring with this now for over a year. And people, the Bahamian people who heard us promise before the elections that we were going to work if we won the elections to reduce the cost of electricity, they would justifiably become impatient if we tarry with a process that just goes on and on.
Now, Christie said that if a company feels it hasn't had enough time, they will make an application to the government, and the government will consider extending the deadline. Each proposal must be submitted with a $25,000 non-refundable deposit. Reporting for NB12, I'm Nakia DeVoe.
And as government search begins for two companies to take over BEC's power generation and transmission and distribution functions, the president of BEC's Managers Union says he would not be against foreign companies getting those contracts. Clinton Minnis, who was elected to the union's top post 3 months ago, says while the union would prefer Bahamian companies, the most important thing is selecting two companies that have the most expertise.
Anything local is better for the country. However, if we can't do it, we have to accept the fact that we need help, and we need a strategic partner who can help us and who are concerned about this country and who are concerned about Bahamians.
We understand government is aiming to have all proposals in by next month. Amendments to the Electricity Act could occur in February 2014. Minnis says government should only entertain serious proposals because taking over BEC won't be easy or cheap.
I know, along with the hundreds of managers in BEC, 100+ managers in BEC, we know what it is daily to run BEC and the issues we go through every day to run the company. And so if persons are going to make propositions, keep it real, because you're only fooling yourself. It's one of the most costly business operation in the world if you don't produce fuel or you don't have renewable energy. It's very expensive.
Union executives met with Deputy Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis Tuesday afternoon. A second meeting is planned for next month. And Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell is warning Bahamians living in and traveling to Miami to be cautious after a new threat was made against the Miami consulate office. Paige McCartney has the details.
According to Mitchell, the threat involved someone posting that they intended to barge into the Miami consulate office. He said as a result, security has been reinforced at that location. A statement released by the minister, who is currently off island, says that the threat was posted by an individual on social networking site Facebook. Mitchell said although the consulate remained open for business today, additional layers of security were added and a formal note has been filed with the United States State Department. Mitchell warned, though, that Bahamians in Miami should exercise reasonable caution at this time. This is the latest development during several weeks of protests against the Bahamas by Cubans and Cuban Americans, led by the activist group Democracy Movement. That group has heavily promoted a boycott of the Bahamas and made claims of torture at the Carmichael Road Detention Center. It claims that Cuban detainees have political asylum and should not be held there. The group continued its protest outside the Bahamas consulate today, but when contacted by our news team, Representative Ramon Saul Sanchez disassociated the threat with his group. He told MB12, "The threat has nothing to do with Democracy Movement," and called on the authorities to investigate and prosecute the person responsible. He added that while Democracy Movement is full of passionate people, they are not violent people. Earlier this week, the group stopped protesting and pledged to publicly apologize to the Bahamas government after it was reported that the Panamanian government was considering offering humanitarian exile to 19 Cuban nationals. However, that offer was never communicated to the Bahamas by the Panamanian government. Group members resumed protesting today when they received word that the Cuban nationals were instead set to be repatriated. Now, according to Director of Immigration William Pratt, the department had planned to repatriate 24 Cuban detainees out of the detention center today, including those 2 who were at the prison, but postponed it due to inclement weather. He told MB12 the plan is to now repatriate them tomorrow after the Cuban government gave the go-ahead. Pratt said currently all the Cuban nationals are back at the detention center except for the 2 who were originally detained at the Fox Hill facility. He said police may hold them at the Carmichael Road Police Station overnight. Reporting for MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
The results of this year's Bahamas General Certificate of Secondary Education exams are in. According to data released by the Ministry of Education, while there was an improved performance in 11 subjects, English and math both saw a decline compared to last year's results. Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald released those results this afternoon during a news conference.
A decline in the grade point average was seen in 16 subjects.
English language and mathematics were among those 16 subjects. Students sitting this year's BGCSE exams received an average letter grade of D in English and E in mathematics. In 2012, the average letter grade for English was D and an E+ for math. More students took exams for those two critical subjects than any of the 27 subjects offered. Fitzgerald said while there has been a slight improvement in literacy levels in recent years, math grades are unacceptable.
We are concerned about the results in mathematics examinations. Our focus, I feel to a large extent, has been focused on literacy, and as a result we have continued to see steady increase in our English language results. In the Department of Education, we must accept some responsibility for the deficiencies in our mathematics results and our ministry's failure to implement required strategies to improve not only teaching but also our results in this area.
Fitzgerald says finding skilled math teachers remains a challenge for the Ministry of Education. However, steps are being taken to enhance in-house training of teachers. Biology, chemistry, commerce, history, Spanish, and religious studies are among the 11 subjects that saw an improvement. Meantime, the highest percentage of grades awarded continues to be grade C, followed by D, then E. In an effort to raise grade levels and reach out to students who are falling through the cracks, the Education Minister says government intends to introduce a standardized national diploma.
We are working very diligently now to ensure that at the end of the day, when the kids graduate from high school, that we have what we consider a basic education, and that will be outlined as a minimum requirement at that level, and we intend to do that through our standardized high school diploma, which in a sense will help us to identify those kids when they go into grade 10 who do not meet that standard.
Of the 7,140 candidates who sat BGCSE exams this year, 996 of them received a grade C or higher in 5 or more subjects. Meantime, more than 1,600 of students received a minimum grade of D in at least 5 subjects. Both are slight improvements over last year's results. However, the ministry reported a 4.75% decline in the number of students who received a grade C or better in math, English, and a science. Fitzgerald is confident they will see an improvement in students' performance once this intervention strategy is implemented.
We have to make sure that we're on the same page. I can tell you that there will be some key components to it, which will require, as a requirement for graduation, there will be a percentage of attendance, there will be a percentage of punctuality, which is going to be a big issue that you'll have to attain in order to graduate. There'll be an element of community service, which will be involved.
BJC results are also in. We'll break those numbers down for you in tomorrow's newscast. And still to come, health officials meet with representatives from the University of Miami. The details of that story and more after the break.